Welcome back, everybody. Looking forward to the second half of the summit. So, Robin, thank you very much for joining us. Really looking forward to your upcoming presentation. As I've said to all of the presenters thus far, I really don't want to do an introduction to you and your background any disservice. So if you want to just give us a quick kind of overview of yourself and backdrop of your story, and then dive straight into your presentation, we'd be very grateful.
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you. So we have 20 minutes, and I'll try to do the best I can to give some extra time for additional questions. So let's get started. My topic is all about leveraging analytics for better customer experience. But first and foremost, as Kyle mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about myself, hopefully not a lot, and a little bit about wefox. So I currently work as the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for wefox. Before that, I worked in large corporates like Cisco, Dell EMC, and Siemens, as well as startups. I also had, I also was an entrepreneur and a co-founder in my previous life. Also work as an investor in a few early stage AI-based funds. So that's my background. And about wefox, wefox is based headquartered in Berlin, functional in so far about 6 countries in Europe. As of now, it's just in Europe. It's considered as one of the world's, I won't say Europe's, one of the world's largest insurtech, because the last month, we raised 400 million at a valuation about 4.5 billion. And this is an increase in valuation by about 50% in just 1 year, which is quite remarkable, especially considering the circumstances, right? This is when multiple of our competitors had down rounds or even see their valuations, deteriorate by about 80% or so. So, the valuation increasing by 50% is remarkable in 1 year under any circumstances, but it's particularly impressive under the current circumstances. To give an idea about how remarkably our 6-year-old company has grown, when I joined the company in 2018, we had about 30 million in revenues and about 200 people. And in 2021, we had 330 million in revenues, and we had about 1,200 people. So we grew 10 times in terms of revenues in just under 3 years, and we grew about 6 times in terms of people. So that's kind of like the scale that we have, and hopefully we are looking at an even better next year, right? We have no intent of slowing down. So hopefully it's an even more accelerated growing path. But more importantly, let's talk about what makes us tick, right? And that's very connected to the topic at hand, because for us, enhancing the customer experience is the key to our success. Because insurance, let's be accepting it, right? Nobody talks about insurance as a sexy business, right? This is not, nobody probably comes out of college and say, let me just go and join an insurance company because they are like the next biggest thing. And that's for a reason, right? What was the last time when you actually bought insurance and was super happy about it? I'm a fantastic, loyal insurance company or something like that, right? Nobody has that experience. And for us, really to be successful, improving their customer experience, right? Being a loyal customer for us is a key to our success. And I can highlight that further. And this is a link to the article which talked about our fundraising, July 11th. And there, Julian talks about this part that I talk about in the bottom, right? So we then focus on enabling our brokers, agents, and affinity partners to target the most profitable customers, which improves our loss ratios and customer lifetime value. Now, there's a key word there, right? Customer lifetime value. In many ways, we don't want to be thinking from the perspective of, hey, it's all about money for us, right? But in the end, we are also a business, and business needs to survive, especially under the current very difficult circumstances for due to the economic reasons and whatsoever. So not just to survive, but to thrive, we need to start thinking about how we increase the lifetime value of the customer. And it can only happen when the customers feel that they had great experience with us. They can trust us. We do the right thing for them. We can offer them the right products at the right price and give them the right experience. But most importantly, because we are an insurance company, we'll be there for them when they need us the most. This is super important for us, right? That's our customer experiences. So for us, we use data and analytics every day because that's part of our experience. That's part of what we offer to our customers to make them stay, to make sure they're happy with us. And most importantly, that we are meeting their needs. And so let's talk about it a little bit more in terms of how this whole aspects of hyper-personalization and being there for the customers came about, right? So when Jeff Bezos said in June 2000 that if you want to have 20 million customers, we want to have 20 million stores, right? It was probably something remarkable, right? But it's no longer, it's kind of like obvious. Nobody expects to log into YouTube or Amazon or TikTok and see the same page as somebody else, right? This is out of the question. You wouldn't even think about it now, but it was remarkable in 2000. But now we are in the age of hyper-personalization, right? So if you see YouTube or TikTok with this algorithm, it's all about understanding exactly what you need and showing that to you. And that's why they're successful. If they were showing the same thing to every customer, or God forbid, they do, 10, this is your persona, right? You have 5 different personas, and then they show you this is based on your persona. You get 1 out of our 5 personas. They won't be successful at all. But now comes the question, right? Is it just about personalization? Is it just about showing me the right page when I log in? Or is there something more to it, right? What is customer lifetime value? How do we collect it? How do we analyze it? How do you understand it? And in the end, how does it translate to better customer experience? Well, in many ways, it's actually pretty simple, isn't it? Right? If I had to just put 1, 2, 3, we can say, well, collect all the customer experience data, analyze that with the BI tool or an AI model or something like that, and generate better insights with the aim of improving customer experience. But that's that's just like any other thing. I mean, I could give a same simple answer like that when somebody asks me about how do I be healthy, and then I say eat right, exercise, do the good things, and you'll be healthy. Yes, of course, we all know this, right? So it's not something that's remarkable. It's a question of, are we doing it, right? And are we doing it in spirit? Are we doing it with the intent of really achieving what we want to achieve, right? Which is customer satisfaction in the end. And again, this is also a place. I'm sorry for being philosophical here, but sorry for saying this. But in the end, I know that I mentioned customer lifetime value, but if you're only looking at from the purpose of just increasing customer lifetime value, then we will fail, because in the end, it's all about improving the customer experience so the customer stays with you, right? The customer is happy with you. This is where I think it was, I don't know which CEO said this, but there was this famous statement that we focus on our employees so the employees can give better experience to our customers, right? This is why we focus on our employees first. So the priority has to be very clear. It's all about improving the customer experiences. But now let's get into a little bit more, right? So we just said that, well, let's collect all the data, right? Let's do some analysis. Let's get better insights. But let's talk about it in a little bit more detail. So what is all of this data that we're collecting? So thinking about it, a lot of it has to do with something what we call as Customer 360. Now, this is an active project for us, but I'm guessing many of your companies also have something similar to a Customer 360 program, right? This is pretty common to have something like a Customer 360 course. The concept is, in a way, very clear, right? So any touch point that you have with the customer is the data that you want to collect, is the data that you want to analyze, whether that's CRM, whether that's billing, if there is some network usage, that part. Which channel do they come from? What devices do they use? On what locations do they use their data? Do they call up your customer service, or do they email them? What is the conversation? If they're talking to them, what's the tone of those conversations? What kind of demographics details do you know about your customers? How are they using the apps? How much time are they spending on your apps or your website, right? And what are they talking about in their social circles? Are you doing the social listening? So there's so many angles to really understanding the customer behavior. And when we talk about data, we'll also try to categorize them a little bit more. But what's important at this point of time is that let's really think about all the data that the customer experience is giving us, right? And let's really think about how many of them are collecting. Now, I can say that I have a long way to go, and it's a struggle always to see how can I catch up with all this available information, right? All this available data. This will always be a little bit of a challenge. But what's important is I understand what are the ways, what are the different categories in which I need to capture the data from and why those parts are important. The first one is obvious, right? Which are the direct channels. These are all the conversations that you have with the customer, like phone, email, chat, or website, how they're using it. Anything that you can directly collect in terms of customer experiences. There's no concern about GDPR here because they're having direct conversations with you. And then there is indirect. So again, this is a little bit more challenging because obviously you need to start thinking from the perspective that do your customers want you to have this data, and do you have the necessary approvals, and is this the right thing and stuff like that. But again, you have forums, reviews, consumer pages where they can give you more information. And of course, there is all this inferred data which you can collect. One part is, as I mentioned, social listening, where many of the brands right now start thinking from the perspective, how am I positioning myself? Am I positioning in the right way to brand myself correctly to the customer? And these may not be even things that's directly related to what you're selling. For example, if you're an insurance company like we are, we can start thinking from the perspective that we need not have a stand on global warming or energy crisis or something like that. But maybe you do, because your customers have definitely a view about it. And maybe you need to understand what your customers' view are. And then you would want to position yourself right to the customer. Not because you want to sell them something, but they are your customers and you care about them, right? So there could also be inferred behavior that you could collect from how our customers are using your app. Simple cases in terms of funnels is that if a customer is coming to you and then there's a sign-up procedure, they spend too much time in one particular field or one particular page, then you know that this is a difficult page for them for whatever reason. Maybe you're asking them to enter some details which is too complicated, right? Or maybe they don't have the information right now. Either way, if you do something like a simple web analytics or an app analytics, you would know exactly where they are dropping off, and then you analyze this from a customer behavior, and you realize that you need to change your product workflow or your funnel so that you can improve the customer behavior or you can improve the conversions at the end, right? So these are inferred behavior understanding and how you can use this information to improve your customer experiences. But now we've collected all this data, right? And now we're starting thinking of, okay, let's improve the customer experiences. So what could be the potential use cases that you have in terms of really improving the customer experiences? Well, I already talked about funnel and sales conversions, right? So this is one of the things that we do, right? We understand how much time, what's the friction that our customers have in terms of signing up with us, as an example, right? And we try to remove that friction. And that could be improving the product, right? So you just understand this is your product workflow, and this product workflow does not suit the customer, or takes something away from a customer experience, and then you try to remove that, reduce that friction. You make product improvements. And as I mentioned, social listening, enriching the brand and the public relationship, because the customers are not just two-dimensional entities, right? They have their voices, their opinions, they have strong perceptions about things. And you might want to understand how exactly you're positioning for your customers. And finally, things like reducing the customer churn or increasing the net promoter score via better interactions. One classic example that I can give is that, as I said, as an insurance company, one of the most important things for us is to be there for the customers when they need us most. And this is when they actually make a claim. So if you have had your car stolen or if you got into an accident, the last thing that you want to do is to spend a lot of time in terms of making a complicated claim and answer those questions, because you're already frustrated, you're angry, you're upset, right? What you want is an insurance company that's actually is helping you, a lot of those things. Right? And this is a classic example of how we can look at the priorities in terms of whatever interaction our customer is raising with us, right? Understand what situation they are in and prioritizing them automatically. So we have AI models which looks at the claims or the messages that the customer is sending us and automatically prioritizes things which need the highest priority, such as a claim, or when they are in a difficult situation where accelerating a payout process would help them, right? So you can reduce customer churn just by looking at this one small fact, because this is, in an insurance industry, one of the biggest challenges that a customer would have, because this is the whole reason why they have an insurance in the first place. Now, your mileage may vary, right? So you are in a completely different industry, and when the customers needs you most would be completely a different process. But the key part is that understand that and try to optimize that, because you can really understand this is the time that an average customer takes when they need you the most, and you can optimize on that, or find out the most difficult part when it comes to how your customer sees your interactions. And lastly, let's also look at it from the perspective when you've done all those implementations, right? How are you measuring it? Because in the end, I don't need to talk about smart cores. They've been talked about for like eternity now, but there has to be some milestones which is attached to measuring how the customer experiences are. So there are direct as well as indirect ways of measuring them. Some could be Net Promoter Score or CSAT or customer satisfaction. You could have things like voice of the customer, or indirectly, right? So average handle time. I talked about our insurance claims as an example, right? We use average handle time there, or CLTV, customer lifetime value. The only thing that I would say is that, again, that's kind of like what the picture shows in on the right side. Customer lifetime value is what we call as a lagging indicator, right? So it's a relation. It's an indication that you have done something right. It does not show you how it's going, how it's going currently, because for that you need to have leading indicators. If your CSAT suffers, if your NPS suffers, if your average handle time reduces, that will eventually lead to a loss in customer lifetime value. So do not take that as a final metric. It's great to have an increased customer lifetime value, but that's a result of doing something right. And again, I cannot emphasize this more, social listening, because you really need to understand the voices of the customer, because sometimes there's only so much that can be done in a direct NPS score or a customer satisfaction, because they're being measured for just one small aspect. Tell us how we did in this particular operation. But in the current day and age, our customers needs to understand a lot more where we stand on certain things, on the issues that are impacting their world, right? And they would really want you to know a lot more about them than just being known as an insurance customer. So let me stop here. As I said, we have 2 minutes left. I hope I'm right on time. I have some time for extra questions. Happy to. Kyle, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robin. Very, very insightful. So not too sure if anyone in the audience has got some questions for Robin. Robin, I will kick off, right? So customer experience, customer lifetime value, the term, and I use quotation marks, of being data driven. They're all things now that businesses are talking about, right? And there's a whole host of debate in the industry around, can you be data driven whilst also being a customer, focused on customer experience and putting the heart, the customer experience at the heart of the business. What's your take on that, and how are you currently trying to kind of navigate that balancing act?
Okay, I think it's you cannot be really thinking about focusing on customer experience unless you are data driven, because you really need to understand where your customers are, how happy they are with you, and what are their problems, what are the challenges that you're facing. So you can have the second without the first, that's for sure. But let's ask the other question, right? Can you be data driven and be looking purely at your interest, not your customer's interest, right? And yes, it is possible. The key question is for how long, right? I might, and again, the way that we think about it, again, I'm being a geek. I probably start thinking from a game theory perspective, right? So we do not play a single player game. We say this is a multiple game, right? So you can probably rip off a person for one time. You can't keep ripping them for the second time or the third time and things like that. And for insurance, it's all about trust. So and I would say all businesses are all about trust. If the customer doesn't trust you, there's going to be churn. There's going to be unhappiness. And eventually, there's going to be a loss of lifetime value. So my belief is that, yes, it's possible to be purely data-centric, purely be profit-driven, and purely be looking at how to optimize cost or increasing revenues without looking at customer satisfaction or what you are giving to the customer. But my feeling is that that's going to be temporary, and that's eventually going to have, it's eventually going to impact your business badly.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Obviously, I guess the flip side of that argument is that the data can also then tell you that there's certain customers that you might have which may not necessarily be the right customers for you, right? And then it becomes a real tough balancing act between, keeping that customer happy when you might not want to keep them as a customer, right? Which is also a consideration here.
Yes, in general. So I would say over the whole, right, we've been happy, we've been grateful to have great customers. But we also get once in a while, some claims which are fraudulent. There's more, thankfully, but we still have to take care of them. And we still have AI models, which, for example, runs and takes care of fraudulent claims. But yes, I agree. There are obviously variations, but thankfully, we've been blessed to have a very great set of customers.
Yeah, you obviously had a very heavy emphasis here in this presentation around kind of the social listening aspect, which is really fascinating. I guess just some practical tips on how other businesses can go about getting the most out of that. Kind of how are you trying to set that up and getting the most value from that kind of initiative?
Yes. I mean, in the end, it's something that we run along with our marketing and the PR team, right? And it's all about understanding the issues that our customers really care about. Now, exactly how we get this information is really up to you, because there are many marketing platforms which can provide you with the social media scores and other aspects, which is currently relevant to your systems. But what's more important is how there are AI models and data which you can run across all the interactions that you have with the customers, which highlight the things that they need, even outside the products that you're providing, and how you can connect that information with potential demographics that you have, which is who is very vocal about such things, let's say in your target region or something like that. So this is what we do. And what we have some very surprising insights in about where our customers stand, right? For example, we are in many ways, as expected, with a young brand, right? We have most of our customers are under 40, as an example. Not all of them, but a lot. And we know very specifically, right, this is exactly what is needed for our particular customers. And when we offer them products, right, it could be also, as we are selling different insurance products, could be from other insurance companies. And when we offer them, we also give them a small message in terms of this and this are the reasons why you're recommending this product to them. And the social aspects of the listening is also a factor in terms of making those recommendations. And to me, it plays a part. We can't say exactly what part. This is something that we're trying to figure out. It plays a part in terms of they making the right decisions, which makes them happy about what they've done.
Yeah, perfect. No, that makes sense. We've got one question here from the audience. Just trying to decipher what it actually means. So I think what they're getting at is, can the process by which you try to improve customer experience, for example, like a survey, can that create dissatisfaction? So they've used an example here. You get an email that says, can you fill in this survey? It'll take you 5 minutes, and it actually takes you 15 minutes. Are there things like that you do have to look out for that then can create distrust or dissatisfaction? I think that's what the question is intended to ask.
That's a great question. In fact, I talked about reducing frictions, right? And this is one of the things that we always look at, right? So if you have to, somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to take motor insurance, right? Do you have to ask them 5 questions or 15 questions or 100 questions? There are experiences where when I actually first came to Germany and then I wanted to take an insurance, liability insurance, I once had to go through an app which asked me like 20 questions or so, right? So and it was weird that I had to answer so many questions. So now comes the next thing. Do I have to really ask 20 questions, or can I ask 3 questions, after which I can eliminate the next 6 questions, right? And then I can reduce it from 20 questions to maybe 7 questions. It may not be the same for every customer, right? It may be 5 questions for one person. It may be 11 questions for the next person. But the more information that you seek from the customer, the more frustrated they become, because they have other things to do than answering your surveys and providing responses to them. So yes, in general, the more you pepper them with questions, the more frustrated they become, and removing the non-essential questions is critical in terms of improving the customer experience. And we do that both in terms of our funnel, right, in terms of their sign-up process, in terms of what they purchase, but also in terms of the questions that we ask with respect to the customer satisfaction and other stuff. But as I mentioned, that's only the direct way of accumulating customer experience. You can also get this information indirectly, right? So there are ways where you can infer the behavior of the customer, and there are also ways in which you can get this information from what they already provided indirectly without directly asking them to fill in a survey.
Yep. Nice. Well, Robin, thank you very much. Great presentation. Conscious of time, so we're going to move on. But thank you very much for your time and your presentation.